Okay, all right. We continue with the topic why schools should be analyzed as organizations. So, in the previous slides, I already mentioned about the culture, how it works, and how important schools to be analyzed as organizations. And these are so-called reasons or factors that contribute why schools should be analyzed as organizations. First, any organization, it has its own structures and cultures. If you go to any company, if you go to any institution or any schools, you can find that that particular organization has its own structures, how it works, and also what cultures or norms or tradition which have been accepted by the people those work in that particular organization. So of course, when we have a very structured organization, we have someone to take care of the company, which the task maybe go to managers. And in this case, at schools, the task of managing schools is under the principal, for example. And the task of the principal is actually to make sure that the organization as a school works very well, very well. And then they also have to set their direction. For example, to achieve very good results in big examinations like STPM, SPM, or PT3, and so on, so that to become a well-known school, for example, in co-curriculum. Yeah, so these people actually they should share the same goals of the organization. Yeah, so that means the teachers, the students, the parents, and the principals, they are actually work together to make sure that they have a shared goals towards that to achieve what they have decided earlier. And then next one way of trying to understand why schools succeed or failure, of course, we have to look at or to examine or to analyze the organization as organization, meaning that as a company. Okay, so researchers have looked at schools where the culture of teaching and learning has broken down. So we can find some schools or perhaps certain area they may have problems with the culture or with the students or even with parents. And then they also have looked at schools which have a good culture because they have achieved certain achievement or progress, even though they have a lot of problems. So they have they studied about that particular school. So having said that, all of this, the school organization and culture will make a lot of difference. Yeah? So that's why we should make sure that schools should be managed very well based as analyze it as organization. All right, we move on to definition of role. Here, it mentioned that the word role has two meaning. Number one, the function or position that somebody has and expected to have in organization, in society, or in relationship. So, based a case that the function, for example, you be as a teacher, so that your function or your position, your role as a teacher. The second meaning is the degree to which something or somebody is involved. So how deep you involve in certain activities in a situation that will affect on you. That will it's not a position, but it's actually how deep you involve, how serious you involve in that particular activities. So the meaning of education is a process of teaching, training, and learning, especially in school or colleges, to improve knowledge and develop skills of each child or student. Okay, now we look at the roles of education in society. So there are two main perspectives about roles of education in society. The first one we look at as in the institution, which making people different educationally. That means we offer them pass on knowledge as we discussed before, and also to guide individuals into that role. So we also expose them, prepare them for the world of work in the future. So this is based on the institution. But when we base on the system, it's being mainly ideology, which is the purpose of role of education in society is actually to ensure the reproduction of economic production and also social inequalities. So meaning that reproduction, that means you reproduce economic reproduction and also to have a social inequality. So this is more to ideology come from that we discussed in the earlier class, which is under the conflict theory. So roles of education in society, as we discussed earlier also, it prepares children for the world of work. When they grow older, they have to make sure they get a job. So that's why schools will prepare them to offer them pass on the knowledge, sharpen their skills, their communication, for example, and so on, so that they be able to function in the future working in some companies. So, and also to help them to develop personal talents, as we know that part of the function of education is to develop a potential of children, in school, and also discover who they are, the self-concept, to know their potential, to know what skills they have, to know what they can do, because if we don't go to school, we don't know what happened to us. So that's why school will develop all these important skills and knowledge. And based on the basic theory of Duke Hams, he mentioned that education system should be seen as an agency. This one based on the theory as a secondary socialization. That means this one we will talk later in the next class. And second one, he also mentioned that education system is an institution that broadens the individual's experience of the social world. So that's why when we go to school, we actually expose ourselves to social world. Now we look at structural functionalism theory. Here we look at as a functionalist term, which it has two basic functions. Number one is function of education. It says that to prepare individuals with knowledge and skills and how to socialize with other people in their society. And number two, the second function is actually is talking about the education system on how to promote social solidarity by promoting understanding of the world. So that is how the education system will help children or students to understand the world. The world means the society. When when you grow older, you learn about people, you learn about interaction of people, you learn about the different classes of people. So these are actually to understand of the world. And it also an experience of collective behavior. Collective behavior, that means consensusly you all agree to certain thing, how people should behave in a society. Sometimes we may not agree with something, but because of collective behavior, we are so-called agree to certain thing, even though in our heart we do not agree. That is how we learn about the collective behavior. And number three is experience of collective consciousness, integrate awareness toward the society. Consciousness, that means common sense that bring us together as a society. We live together, we live in our society so that we be able to understand, for example, our neighbors. We have to understand the community, we have to understand the parents' problems, so we have to understand the children's problem. So all these are actually consciousness around environment that we live in. And that also refers to the basic fundamental values and norms that people share in society. So for example, if you are a teacher, then if you go to pasar malam, for example, to buy things, to buy your groceries, I don't think that you should wear different way, for example, short pants, because that will not be accepted in that society. So you have to be very careful. What are the norms? What are the culture? What are the values of that particular society? So you cannot say I don't care. No, you have to care because you live in that society.